What's going on, guys? It's Frager here again, and welcome to my village transformation. So this is the village that I'm going to be transforming today, and I haven't done one of these in a very long time, so I'm super excited to be doing this one today. Now, one of my goals for this transformation is to try and keep as much of the original layout of the village as possible, and then only add some variants in if needed. But before we get into this video, if you enjoy this type of content and you haven't hit that subscribe button yet, make sure to hit that subscribe button down below. And if you guys want to interact with me or my community outside of YouTube, then make sure to join my Discord server linked down in the description. But anyway, without further ado, let's get right into this transformation. So I wanted to start off this transformation down here in the lower section, and in an effort to try and keep a similar layout to this village, I started off by turning this little farm into a greenhouse. And for this greenhouse, I decided to go with a spruce outline, using stripped spruce logs for posts, and then outlining the roof with spruce stairs. And then I filled in all of the walls and the rest of the roof with glass. And then to top it all off, I added some fence gates to the roof, and some fences on the sides to give it some extra detail. Now moving on to the first house we are going to make in this village, I wanted to go with a slightly different style to these houses than I normally do, so to switch things up a little bit, for this lower level I decided to go with stripped logs for the walls instead of cobblestone. And right now the walls are stripped oak, but I thought that was a little bit too contrasty, so later on I changed them to stripped spruce. And then for this upper level, I decided to go with bone blocks, which I've never used in a build before, and I honestly have no idea why. I've been meaning to add some bone blocks to my build style for a while, but I just haven't gotten around to it yet until now. I also added some overhanging bits to this top part to give it some more depth and detail. And then for the roof, we're just going with a standard spruce stair roof. And to finish this house off, we're going to be adding in some extra details like windows, shutters, bushes, and some fences to these overhanging bits to give them some extra support. Now moving on to this second house, I wanted this one to be the leather worker's house. So I decided to add a little front porch here, which is where the cauldron will be, and I went back and forth on how big I wanted this porch to be, but I think in the end I went with a perfect size for this front porch. And of course we're going to be adding some overhanging bits to the top part to again add some more depth and detail. And then to finish off this leather worker's house, in this open area here adjacent to the house, I decided to add a drying rack for the various types of leather. And honestly, I think it turned out alright. I'm not completely happy with it, but I think it looks fine. Now for this cliffside here, I wanted to clean it up a bit by turning it into a cobblestone wall, and then at the very top, I decided to add a little pond with a spring flowing from a small rock. And then of course I had the pond flow down over our cobblestone wall and then turn into a river that ends in a little pond right next to our leather worker. And while I was making this river, I had a cool idea to have part of it flow off into our greenhouse here to act as a sort of irrigation system for the crops. Now moving on to our next house, this one is going to be right next to our river, and I think some of you probably already know where this is going to go. So for this one, I wanted it to be a huge building and to act as more of a warehouse. And then for this upper part, I wanted to add a little tower here in the corner to give it some character. And then to finish off this giant building, I'm going to be adding in a water wheel right here on the river. And I went through a few design iterations before I finally landed on the one that I liked. And in the end, I'm actually very happy with how this building turned out. And now to finish off this lower part, it's time to add in the pathway. And for this pathway, I wanted it to be as similar to the original pathway as possible, so I'm using path blocks, and then on the edges of the pathway, I'm using podzol and coarse dirt to help transition it a little more into the grass. And then on the parts where the pathway intersects with the river, I'm just making a simple bridge with spruce trapdoors. So that's it for this lower part, and now it's time to shift our focus to this upper part. And to start off this upper part, we're going to be making a blacksmith. For this one, I wanted to have a little porch coming off the side of the main structure, which is where all of these smithing tools will be, like the anvil and the blast furnace. And then for this main structure, I originally started off by making it with bone blocks, and then I later changed it to bricks because I wanted to have a little variance in the houses instead of them all just being bone blocks. And then I of course added a little chimney here for the blast furnace. So now moving on to the next house, I wanted this one to be more of the centerpiece of the village, sort of like a town hall, and it just kind of looks like another one of the houses too much for my liking, but I did add some extra overhanging bits and then a large tower at the center of it to help kind of make it look a little more unique, but it still just kind of looks like another one of the houses. Regardless of that though, I am still very happy with how this one turned out. Now moving on to our next structure, I wanted this one to serve as sort of like an inn, and I wanted this one to also serve as sort of like an entrance to this village. So I made the main structure of this inn rather large so that it can fit a lot of beds. And to sort of act as like the entrance to this village, I decided to have a little tower on the other side of the pathway and then a little bridge connecting the inn to the tower. Now this tower is a little bit too close to this blacksmith for my liking, so with the power of World Edit, I ended up moving this blacksmith over a few extra blocks. And I'm actually very happy with how this inn turned out. Now moving on to this farmland over here, I did want to make this more of a farming area, so I ended up prettying up these little farms by adding a cobblestone wall around them and then filling them with wheat. And then as for this little animal pen, I decided to turn that into a stable for people to keep their horses when they enter this village. And then for the last structure of this village, I decided to make a stonemason. And then for this one, I wanted to do something similar to what I did with the blacksmith, where I have this little porch area coming off the side of the main structure of the house. Now, contrary to the blacksmith, I did decide to go with the regular bone block building style. And in the end, I think the stonemason turned out incredibly good. But that is it for the main structures in this village. Now it's just time to add the finishing details, like grass, flowers, and the rest of the pathways. And now that that is all done, it's time to see the full final results of this village transformation. So that is it for this village transformation. And if you enjoyed this one, then make sure to hit that like and subscribe button down below if you have not already. And if you guys have any suggestion on video ideas you want to see in the future, then make sure to leave a comment down in the comment section below. But I am incredibly happy with how this village transformation turned out. I think these houses look amazing, and my favorite part of this village by far is this water feature at the center. But anyway, that's all I have time for today, so as always, don't forget to keep building.